All right. Title of this lecture is the circulatory system. Cardiovascular system. We'll use that. It's the same thing. Cardiovascular system. In fact, that might be worth mentioning. AKA circulatory. Same thing. Cardiovascular and circulatory are the same thing. One of these describes the anatomy, the other one describes the physiology. This is the physiology. It's telling you, hey, we're moving blood all throughout. This one's describing the anatomy. It's naming the parts. The purpose, once again, purpose of the cardiovascular system is to what? Blank, blank.
Move blood.
Booyah. Move blood. That's our goal. Let's focus on these words right here. Cardio and vascular. This is the anatomy. Okay? Anybody know what cardio means? Heart. Yeah. That's why cardio exercise is exercise where basically you're trying to increase your heart rate to some sort of target range where it's elevated for a brief period of time. How about vascular? Mumble, mumble, mumble. What's that? That's the function that's carried out by this and these. Yeah, veins, arteries, vessels. This is a strange word. Vessels. Vessel can be something like this. It's a container for something. Vessel is also the name for like a ship on the ocean. It's a container for air and also people and cargo. But if it doesn't contain air, it's at the bottom of the ocean. These vessels we're talking about actually have holes at both ends. They're tubes of some kind, okay? And since we have these tubes, humans have what's called closed or open. Have a closed circulatory system. This is because, I should make that capital, because all of our blood is contained in vessels. There are organisms that don't have all their blood in vessels. They have a heart, they have blood, but there's no, or at least almost no vessels. Spiders, for example, have an open circulatory system. They have a heart, they have blood, their blood just pumps and basically it just kind of moves the blood around. It's not directed to any specific place, it's just as long as it's moving. Some of it will be oxygenated, some of it will be deoxygenated. Okay. Major blood vessels have names. What constitutes major? Major can be seen without a microscope. Now, some microscopic vessels have names, like if you're studying like in the nephron, they've got in the kidneys these little microscopic things. We have afferent arterioles, but they're not specific names. They're just all called that. But here we have some. Put your fingers on your neck, right below your jaw, about there. You see my face? Right there. Can you see my hand? Not really.
Your shoulders in the way.
Shoulders in the way? Better?
Yeah.
All right, right about there. Should feel a thump, 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 thump. Okay, that's your carotid artery. Everybody's got one on each side, common carotid. They're going up to the brain. You've had that since well before you were born. Now that one splits and splits and splits, and when they split, then the name changes. Common carotid becomes two other ones. The names change. When they split or combine. That's what it comes down to. And whether they split or combine depends on what kind they are. Arteries are going to split. Veins are going to combine. Now let me give you some examples here. You got this tube traveling down your back. So we're looking at it from an anterior view. If you're able to see through you, this tube is about the size of your thumb. It is a huge blood vessel, sending an immense amount of blood. It's called the descending aorta. At the point where we're at on the descending aorta, it may be called the abdominal aorta. Either way, aorta know it. Sorry. All right, it's going to split off right here. Right by the hip bones. What were the big hip bones called? Above that. Ilium. And because these split off right by the ilium, these are called common iliac, and a little a for artery. Common iliac artery. ILIAC. Now what's going to happen here is that there's going to be another branch that comes off and goes to the inside like that, while this one is going to continue down and head down toward the leg. Now if you ever see common like that, what happens is that one branches off again and its name changes in such a way that it keeps the name of what it had previously. So this will be the external iliac artery. This one will be the what? Internal iliac artery. So, descending aorta, its name changes when it splits. Common iliac artery. Splits off into the internal iliac and external iliac. Now, you don't need to memorize the name of all these blood vessels right now. I'm just using this as an example. What do you think this thing's called? I like that. That's good. This one, just to make things confusing, is also called the common iliac artery. How in the world are we going to distinguish this from this? Good news is, it's as easy as it looks. Yep. And which, if we're looking at it from the front, which one is this?
No, right. No, left.
Those are the choices, yes.
It's the patient's left.
Uh-huh.
Patient's right, so that's the left.
Yes, patient's left is always left. So this is the left common iliac artery, left external iliac artery, left internal iliac artery, and this is the right common iliac artery. Now what I found is that, and we'll be actually learning blood vessels in the next unit when we study blood vessels, blood pressure in the urinary system. If on the essay test here, students take great advantage of the fact that there are right and left on most of these things in labeling. You have to label like 30 or 40, I think it was. And I see a lot of rights and lefts. And it works, because they are different blood vessels. All right. So, three major categories of blood vessel. We got this and one other idea, and then we'll be done with notes for today. Three major categories of blood vessels. All right. First one I named, I said it a bunch of times. These are all arteries. Even the aorta is an artery. Sometimes they call it the aortic artery, but most people just call it aorta. Artery. What defines an artery? Yes. Carries blood away from the heart. Some try to confuse this and complicate it by saying, oh, it carries oxygenated blood. Don't do that. Okay? Yeah, most of the time arteries do carry oxygenated blood, but there is a huge exception. There is a circuit called the pulmonary circuit that leaves the heart and goes to the lungs. All arteries in the pulmonary circuit carry deoxygenated blood, and all veins carry oxygenated blood, so don't get yourself into that mess. This will always be right. All arteries are moving in a direction away from the heart. All veins are returning back to, yes, veins the next thing. Vein carries blood back to the heart. All right. The third one, arguably the most important one of all of these, is the one that gives any of these significance. These are super tiny. What are they called? Capillaries. Capillaries are microscopic, thin-walled vessels that allow for exchange of materials to and from cells. Microscopic, thin-walled vessels that allow for exchange of materials to and from cells. That's what capillaries are. These two would be completely useless except for that guy. These are just delivering blood to, ultimately, these are delivering blood to these, and these are collecting, veins are collecting blood from the capillaries. It's at the capillaries that stuff actually matters. Why do we need blood? Why do we circulate blood? That's a good question. In fact, this will be our question and answer, and we'll be done. Here we go. Question. Why do cells need blood?
Because it's their job.
Whose job?
The cell's job.
Cell's job? To get blood? That's one major reason.
Get rid of CO2.
Yes, that's another major reason. There's lots of them. Those are probably the two. There are the two at the top of the list. Here's my first answer, though. They're helpless. They are trapped in the confines of the body. If I were able to pull out one of my muscle cells and put it in a nutrient solution, it would die because they're needy. But if I took out like one of my fat cells, they don't do very much. It's ironic. Put that in there, it'd probably live a little while. As long as it could get oxygen from the material, as long as it could drop off its CO2 and it had enough nutrients, it'd be okay. But all of our cells, how many cells? Here's how many. 100 trillion.
Wow. That's a lot of cells.
That is a lot of cells. This is how many citizens there are of your body. 100 trillion cells.
Can't even count that high.
Now, it would be impressive if anybody could count anywhere near that high. Go ahead.
That guy's great.
Okay. They're helpless. They are trapped within the confines. So, we've established, one, they need oxygen. Oxygen to carry out what process? Cellular respiration. As a result of that, they need to get rid of, oh, remember, cell respiration, the goal is to make ATP. They need to get rid of CO2, because if CO2 collects in our bloodstream or in our cells or in our interstitial fluid, we have an enzyme called carbonic anhydrase that will convert that into carbonic acid and will lower the pH of our blood and interstitial fluid and ultimately denature our enzymes, destroy our protein machinery, and kill us. So we got to get rid of it. All right? 3, they need nutrients. That said Ned. They need nutrients. Which is why you're a little bit sluggish right now. Or at least I am. My body is trying to, it's diverted a lot of blood flow to my digestive tract to help break down what I had for lunch today. And in my small intestines, those blood vessels are absorbing those nutrients to ship directly to these 100 trillion citizens, and make me a little tired. And once they break it down, they need to get rid of wastes. Besides CO2, they need to get rid of waste products. Things like creatinine or uric acid or urea, byproducts that cells find to be toxic. They send it out their front door and it gets pulled away by the bloodstream. So it's this constant exchange of good and bad, and it's the reason that basically your cells can live trapped in the body and not have to worry about anything, because everything is delivered to their front door and trash is picked up immediately. So, yeah. So that's pretty much it for today, gang.